dreams. New York, big city of dreams.
What's going on? It's Jay Ellis from Knick Of Time Show. Here to give you that Knicks talk just in the nick of time. We're here to talk about some big news. The Knicks just did the unthinkable and fired. That's right, fired longtime coach Thomas Thibodeau. Didn't think it was going to happen, to be honest with you, considering that Leon Rose and Tom Thibodeau have been tight. He brought the Knicks to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in 25 years, had the back successful win seasons, but alas, we're here and we're ready to talk about it all right, good, the bad, and the ugly. So I'm ready to get into it. Before I get into it, let me introduce you to our guys. First and foremost, it is the Latin assassin, our Bleacher Report contributor, ESPN contributor, Lee Escobedo. What's going on, Lee?
Wild day. Did not expect this to happen. Now that it has, there's so much to talk about, not just the present firing, but the future and who's next.
Absolutely. And of course, you already know, it is the fifth Beatle, our guy, Fritz Alessandor, best mod in the game. What's going on, Fritz?
Hey, what's going on? There's nowhere better. There's no one I'd rather talk to than you guys. This wild talk out there. We know. When you want real Nick talk, this is where you need to be.
Yeah, real Nick talk is where you need to be. Ebony is supposed to be on her way. We're still kind of waiting for Ebony. Hopefully she makes it with us so we can talk about this huge news. Now, I know like you and me, we were both surprised. Today, Shams dropped a bomb saying that Tom Thibodeau has indeed been fired. And then Ian Begley kind of gave us his own detail following the Shams bomb, because I guess it's not a Wolves bomb, it's a Shams bomb. Following the Shams bomb, and some of the details that was kind of came out was this. Begley also reports that the Knicks conducted meetings with selected players, Thibodeau and some of his staff this week to assess the season. Knicks owner James Dolan was at these meetings. Now, typically, James Dolan aren't at exit meetings. So already, just that little tidbit, how that's been different from the years before, makes it seem like things have been are more serious than it once was. So yeah, and after talking to James Dolan, after the meeting, the players, select players, mind you, not the whole team, select players, and the staff, they decided to let him go. And they said that the Knicks wanted a different voice. You know, it's always kind of been a theory, the Golden State theory, that Tom Thibodeau will be the guy who built the foundation and we bring somebody else to get us to the promised land. Maybe we're here right now, but we'll see. So I just want to get your thoughts, man. I'll start off with Lee. What are your thoughts on the Tom Thibodeau firing? I know you were surprised just like I was.
What a 5 years it's been. Thibs, an amazing coach, one of the top 5 best Knicks coaches in franchise history. Probably one of the best table setters in NBA history, going into a despondent franchise and absolutely turning it down from top to bottom, instilling confidence, defense, and culture. He did it with 3 of the worst franchises of the 21st century: the post-Jordan, post-Vinny Del Negro Chicago Bulls, the post-Kevin Love Minnesota Timberwolves, and then the post-Fizdale New York Knicks, and came in and made all 3 teams a playoff team. And 2 of those instances, 1 coach of the year, including here in New York. I had a wild roller coaster experience with him myself when I first hopped on this channel as a co-host. I was very strongly for firing him. Spent many an article writing about firing him. Went on SNY with a sign to fire him because that was a season after the thumbs down, and we hadn't made the playoffs yet. And we had only made the playoffs once, and we got embarrassed. And I hadn't really seen a whole lot of growth from him as a coach at that point, while also understanding that he didn't necessarily have a roster that fit his skill set. but I wasn't very optimistic that things would turn around. And then I started kind of wanting to walk away from the extremities and not be superly emotional about where I felt about the head coach, which I had done in the past with Fizdale. I did in the past with Derek Fisher, Hornacek, even Mike D'Antoni. I really wanted to learn X's and O's and see if I could defend or change my take based on an advanced understanding of the game. And when I did, I started having more appreciation for what Thibs was doing, specifically on the offensive end. I realized that he was actually running a lot of sets at the same time. A lot of those sets only primarily involved our best players. So whatever zoom or pin down action was being thrown, typically is mostly for Jalen Brunson, not campaign. It left a lot of guys searching for their opportunities in the offense. And that was consistently frustrating, as was losing the playoffs to three teams I thought we could have beat. Today, I had a conversation with myself about Miami and realized we probably could have beat Miami at that point in time, too, because Jalen Brunson was on the roster. Granted, he got outcoached, and that's why we lost. In my opinion, it wasn't a talent differential. It was a coaching masterclass by Eric Spoelstra. I think we could have beat Indiana last year, too, if we hadn't gotten injured. And I think we should have beat Indiana this year with the talent that we had on this roster. So while I was against, ultimately, Tom Thibodeau being fired before the end of his extension, I do understand the reasoning why. This move, to me, hearing everything I've heard and picking up on the tea leaves as a journalist myself, I feel like James Dolan had a big hand in this. I think Dolan was very much influencing this move to be made, which is why he was sitting into the meetings, because he wanted to hear with his own ear how the players view Tom Thibodeau. I think James Dolan, unlike Leon Rose, is someone who listens to the media. I don't think he's on Twitter, but I do think that he watches a major mainstream network news. And I think he reads a lot of the articles that are about the people that he hires, Leon, Thibs, so on and so forth. And I think that he was starting to get to understand that we really should have beat the Pacers. We shouldn't have choked away that first game. And that was a historic NBA choke, that game one against Indiana. That was a devastating, one of the worst chokes I've ever seen in my own two eyes. And I think those things influenced his decision to put the motion in place to eventually decide whether he should be hired or fired. And I think he was probably the loudest voice in the room for this to happen. I've also heard rumors that Brock Auer was also for this move or had some issues with it, as well as Worldwide West. That all of it's conjecture. We don't know because we're not in those backroom spaces. So if we're not going to say our sources, again, it's all speculation. As a journalist, I think it's important. If you have a source, you quote it. Otherwise, you can't be taken seriously. In this case, all we have is the evidence in front of us and what we can see and what we have heard. And I am looking at this firing. While I don't support it, I'm very optimistic about the future. I don't think this is the Mark Jackson, Steve Kerr analogy, because I think Tom Thibodeau is way better than Mark Jackson. Not even close. So I'm hoping to get an upgrade, and I like the idea of an assistant coming in, a young guy, taking over his team, and adding a little bit of player empathy and player understanding, and adding a little bit of complexity to how we guard things, what kind of offenses that we run, adding more motion to the offense, adding a little bit of zone when necessary on defense. Those two things I'm really excited about. And the options are there for sure. There's lots of former player, never been assistant guys like Rajon Rondo, the assistant players like Jerry Stackhouse. There's obviously a name we're all familiar with in Johnny Bryant, and then some guys who have won chips that are available in coaching free agency. So there is a lot to consider. I'm sure we're going to chop it up on all of it. Yeah, looking forward to chatting.
Yeah, what's going on? What's going on, Fritz? What are your thoughts, man?
It's a lot. I think just the personal relationships makes this complicated. Um, Tom Thibodeau in 5 years, he's so ingrained in this team and the players in the team that I think it's kind of like getting rid of a family member, or instead of getting rid of like just business, it's a coach. I think that's probably what made this complicated. That's probably why Dolan probably had to get involved. Because I think Jalen Brunson's voice is very loud. His dad's in the organization. He has ties to the organization, and he has fully supported Tom Thibodeau. So I think it kind of probably made it a little bit more complicated than it is for most people, where it's just a business decision. I think it is the correct decision. I told you I was there. I was at this decision before the season was over,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't. Like I said, it wasn't to punish Tom Thibodeau. I wasn't upset with Tom Thibodeau. I just thought going forward, we needed a different skill set. And I kind of think that's where we are. I don't think this is a punishment. I don't think this is revenge. I don't think this is any of those negatives. I think the organization loves Tom Thibodeau, but we're at a level where we need a different set of skills.
Um, I'll say this. The James Dolan theory, very odd that James Dolan was in that meeting. It's been reported that this was Leon Rose's decision and not Jalen and not James Dolan's decision. That's what's been reported. But just the fact that Dolan was in the room just makes me question it. Question whether it is true. I'm not coming after, Ian's credibility. I just feel like he could just been fed that to take the heat off of Dolan just because of the stigma that comes with Dolan making decisions. Because we've been successful for these last 5 years because Dolan hasn't been involved in decisions. So I think the fact that maybe he could be involved might rub some people the wrong way, and it can turn into a hellstorm. So it's a theory. It's only a theory, but just looking at how everything was set up, it's just odd to me that they wrote that it was Leon Rose's decision when Dolan was in the room. Two, for me, after the Pacers series, for those who were here during the post game, I felt like there was opportunity to make adjust. I led with, I think, that post game talking about Tom Thibodeau's adjustments, and I felt like he did actually grow as a coach. Actually, this season, like I seen him do switching. I seen him do switching themes. I seen him use more of his bench the first time he's ever have done it. Like I felt like he definitely adjusted, but I think my criticism during the last post game was he didn't adjust fast enough. Which was and the biggest one probably was starting Mitch Robinson or even Deuce McBride earlier, getting to your bench before game 3. I feel like those adjustments maybe if made earlier, maybe we could have pulled out the Pacers game. Now the criticism with the Miami game, I don't agree. I don't think we had enough talent to beat Miami considering the lack of shooting that we had. We were dead last in the NBA in 3-point shooting. I don't think we just had enough to overcome that. But this season, I think most people would say top end talent. The Knicks had more top end talent, but the Pacers were a better team. So when we have more top end talent and you get beat by a better team, it kind of causes you to question, okay, if we do believe we have more top end talent, where do we move from here? So like this kind of actually makes me believe even more that we might stay put as a team even more because in my brain it's like, all right, if you're going to get rid of the coach, that means you believe in the players. That's how I kind of see it. So if you're getting rid of a coach, you're saying I believe in the players more than the coach, and you might run it back for the most part. So I think this firing is a signal that we actually might run it back. Also, you want to say something, Lee? I feel like you want to jump.
Yeah, I agree with very much of what you're saying, especially about the Dolan part. That is super intriguing. You rarely really hear about any owners sitting into player conversations with the front office staff at the end of the season. It's that those type of debriefings I've never even seen. I can't remember a time where it's been reported. So I definitely think Dolan was very interested to have the players support his theory that we need to move on. Again, all conjecture because I have no sources.
Right.
But that being said, I am optimistic about this firing. I'm very optimistic in many ways. I'm glad that this organization is not run by cronyism and nepotism. Just because you're friends with someone for 30 years doesn't mean that if you keep hitting the same wall and you're losing to the same team back-to-back seasons, and the same criticisms are happening with the growth of the players, the growth of the team, and that coach in general, right? Tibbs' flaws have followed him his whole career. If you're at that point, you are willing to make a change with the optimism that someone can come in and start anew. Not necessarily from scratch, but unlock things that Tom Thibodeau is unable to unlock because of his stubbornness. I also don't think I advocated earlier today before the news that the bench need to be rearranged. Not the player bench, even though I think that needs to too. The coaching staff, some pieces, the Ermans and the Larry Greers, kick two of those three bums out the door and bring in some young guys that have counter views and counter philosophies to Thibs to make for a more well balanced offense, to where he'd be like, let's run this for 4 or 5 plays. If it doesn't work, Thibs, go back to what you're doing, heavy pick and roll, whatever, and then try it out. I don't think there's a voice on this bench that was doing that except for Johnny Bryant, and I don't think that Thibs was listening to Johnny Bryant with any level of consistency. I think it was a Thibs show. And that's how it's been at every stop. We know these type of things. His former players say these type of things, especially in the last podcast with Jeff Teague. He said that outright, that he doesn't listen to assistant coaches. He's the one that calls every play, which supports our arguments that he's been calling a lot of plays this season, and he did. Not always the right one, but he did. I'm very optimistic about who the coach is going to come in, because I think it's one or two things. It's either someone who's proven they can win a championship in their career, a Malone, a Bud, even though I don't think Bud is really a consideration, or it's a brand new, fresh face. Maybe it's someone who has this familiarity with the roster. Johnny Bryant did assistant coach for like half the roster right now. Everyone but the rookies and Bridges and Cat and Shamit, DeLon Wright type guys. Mm-hmm. Everyone else, he was here last year when we went on that run. So I like that option, but there's a lot of other young guys across the league. Dave Bliss and OKC is an option. The Chris Quinn that people have been asking for on Twitter in Miami Heat. The possibilities are anew, and I'm choosing to look at this very optimistically, that I think having some young energy and a different mindset, seeing our team run different schemes, seeing our team have a deeper rotation, those are all positives to me. Thibs, to the front office, ran his course. And I think those guys know more about basketball than I do. So if Leon Rose thinks Thibs ran his course, who am I to argue with that?
For me, just like how the Cat trade happened, I'm skeptical until I see results. That's how I am. That's just how I roll. It's like, for me, like, I definitely know Tom Thibodeau has flaws. Every coach has his flaws. I definitely recognize that, there were certain rotations he did not play. And we could have expanded on some of that during the playoffs. I guess my thing is, all right, cool. We got rid of Tom Thibodeau. Who's next? Is the person we're going to bring in going to be a difference? And to me, when you argue, like, I feel like after the Pacers loss, you can argue either way. Like, if you were like, yo, what I saw from Tom Thibodeau, I wasn't really feeling during that Pacers series, I can see your point. But I can also see someone going, you know what? We got to 25. We got to the Eastern Conference Finals. We beat the Boston Celtics. He's earned the right to play next season. And for me, it was just like, okay, I understand the flaws, but it's like, who are you bringing in? Who are you going to bring in that is going to do better than him? I don't see Ty Lue better available. I don't see Eric Spoelstra available. So it's like, for me, I'm just like, okay, you got rid of Tom. You better know who you bringing in here to do a better job than Tom. So it worries me a little bit that it could be James Dolan's decision, because if it was James Dolan's decision, what that means is the front office might not have that answer ready already. Like, the Johnny Bryant is interviewing with Phoenix. That's Johnny Bryant's interviewing with Phoenix. He's a finalist. Maybe it's a move like, we'll get this quickly so we can jump in front of Johnny Bryant and try to get him here. I don't know if that's the play, but I think that's my other worry too. Like, if Dolan is involved, now the front office kind of has to think quick on their feet.
Um, I kind of had like a kind of a different take on it.
Hmm.
I think a lot of people come in and they say, "Hey, if I'm taking Thibodeau out, can I get a better coach?" I don't think comparing resumes is really the thing. I think you have to see who's going to get a better result. And sometimes the better coach doesn't get the better result because it takes different ways to reach players. Just the needs of the team could be different.
Hmm.
You may have a coach who specializes in one thing, and just that one thing can put us over the top, and the players already know the other parts themselves. They don't need help in all areas. I don't think necessarily you have to come with someone and say, "Hey, you put their stats against the other one, and this is the guy to go with." Um, you know, we're Knicks fans. We've seen Phil Jackson come in, and he had one of the best resumes in basketball, but he wasn't the guy.
Right,
He
but
was
he also
far from
wasn't
it.
a GM.
Yeah. He was the GM, but sometimes those stats don't really mean much. I think they may have a guy who they think is the right guy, and I think it's probably the time to do it.
Also, recent memory. First of all, that's a great take for it. That's not my take, but there's a lot to agree with in there. This era is new. It's different than it was in the 80s and 90s in hindsight, where you don't necessarily have to have like a legacy resume in order to be successful. We have seen a lot of success in recent memory with young coaches that either had no assistant coach experience, like Mark Daigneault, who was a G League head coach. He
Hmm.
wasn't an assistant on anyone's staff. Now he's in the finals. We've also seen success from longtime coach like Rick Carlisle, the other guy in the finals. But Eric Spoelstra worked his way up as a video intern, and then when he got his opportunity from Pat Riley, went back upstairs and he was on the bench, he took over and then turned team into a contender. Ty Lue, at that point, had only been assistant to Doc Rivers, I believe, in the LA Clippers. And then when David Blatt was fired, he was David Blatt's assistant. He took over, won a championship in his first season. Also, Steve Kerr didn't have any experience as a head coach, had a GM experience, but not head coach experience in Phoenix. He came in for Mark Jackson and won multiple championships. Granted, all those teams just named had way more talent than this Knicks team. Doesn't mean this Knicks team doesn't have talent. It does. But I'm talking about guys that had Steph Curry and LeBron James. So I understand that. Nick Nurse, same thing. He had Kawhi Leonard, who I would rank above Jalen Brunson for 2 Finals MVPs. But I do think this team, there's enough talent on this team where you don't need a legacy coach to
Hmm.
come in and maximize. The OG, the Bridges, the Brunson, the Cat, we would all agree, no matter where our stance is on Thibs in general, this roster was never maximized. There was so much more we felt like could be manifested from this group of guys. We didn't see the full Bridges Brooklyn experience. When we saw OG have moments where he looked like dollar store Kawhi, which is pretty, by the way, that's not pejorative. Dollar store Kawhi is very good, right? And then Karl-Anthony Towns. We saw so much improvement downhill and around the rim, but no three-point shooting. Imagine if he admits that into his bag, how much more devastating he is as a three-level scorer. And Jalen Brunson, I think, has another level as a playmaker for others. And we haven't seen that yet. So if we get a guard centric coach or a coach who has, a lot of experience in multiple positions and stack a good veteran coaching staff around him, I think we could go to the finals next year because there is so much talent on this roster that's yet to be maximized.
Yeah, I mean, all good points. All good points. The unknown is just, like you said, the unknown is just unknown. When you just gotta take a stab at the dark, I guess, and it's like, all right, this and see what happens. But listen, as well as this season has gone, there are probably like 3 things I wish I would have saw that I didn't see in the regular season and the playoffs. One of them being 5 out. We got Karl-Anthony Towns here to be a pick and roll threat with Jalen Brunson. We used Karl-Anthony Towns as a passer from the top of the key, but we never really saw a true 5 out offense. And I felt like that's a weapon that could be utilized if you don't start Josh Hart, or if you experimented with using Deuce McBride or Shamit in spaces, and we just didn't do that. Not even to say we have to start that way, but I just felt like we missed the opportunity using 5 out. 2, Mitch starting. I actually felt like Mitch was probably going to start next season, just the way the playoffs was going. but I would like to see Mitch start more. Now, granted, a lot of the reason why he didn't start was because he had injuries. So I always felt like towards the end of the season, maybe he would start alongside Karl Anthony Towns once he got more wind. It happened during the playoffs, and he. So I mean, that's another thing that I actually wish I would have seen more under Thibs, at least a little bit earlier. The third one is escaping right now, but those are the two big ones right now. I don't know if there's anything you guys wish you saw more of from Thibs this season.
I know for the team in general, it never passed the eye test to me. Like it'll always look clunky. It always looked like we were struggling to find an identity. Um, I I really thought going in this was going to be, in my mind, it's going to be Golden State East. Like we have shooters, we have passers, we have it all, and it was a struggle. There was just so much resistance to Jalen Brunson. There's just so much resistance all around. I just never saw an easing of that resistance. So I think that was really a thing. Like sometimes you don't have to add so much as you have to take obstacles away from players. Like when Jalen Brunson, take the obstacle away from him. Let his game be a little bit easier. If the game was a little bit easier, perhaps Jalen Brunson would pass more. If um if we had open shots, perhaps Mikal would shoot more threes. So I think just those obstacles never got dealt with, and I just felt like um if we started next season, I think I think Tom Thibodeau would have just spun the season back up and did the same thing again. And I think that wasn't something that we could have dealt with.
Oh, hold on, Lee. Let me just acknowledge this is the biggest super chat we've gotten so far. So let me just acknowledge this man right here. All right, $120 super chat from Ricardo Custer. I appreciate you, man. Really do. To me, started with OG's contract, had no choice to let Hart go.
$2.88 actually.
Huh?
It is a Ugandan peso.
Oh, Ugandan peso. Okay, well, thank you for
shout out Uganda. That's an
shout out
unbelievable.
Uganda for the
We learned something today.
learn something today.
We are worldwide.
Oh man. All right. Well, he said, I'll still read your super chat message. Had no choice to let Hart go. Then we had to bring Cat, both from elite defensive team to average. Thibs couldn't overcome that. Hart being gone was a technical rule flaw. We were not able to bring him back because technically was not able to offer him over 16 million, I think, a season. So we were doomed from the start. The way he performed, like he performed better than his contract, and that's just a weird rule from the CBA. Why we lost Hart. That's not on point. Front office. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Lee.
Yeah, in terms of things I wish I would have seen, I think more about things I wish I would have seen less. It was always a little disconcerting. Jalen Brunson led the entire league minutes on ball, led the entire league dribbles, in total dribbles, and across the entire NBA. Those type of stats, I was like, man, that's not enough motion, and that's not enough passing. I think this team in general didn't pass enough, and I don't think there were enough plays ran for bench guys when they came in. The bench guys were expected to just find their own shot in the rhythm of a game as a third and fourth option within a set. I would have liked to actually seen some sets ran for these guys, especially the veterans who know how to move off ball. Shamet, DeLon Wright, Campaign, have them come off the off ball screens, catch, and then make a decision in the mid range, either attack the rim or pull up. You didn't see a whole lot of that until Thibs' back was pushed against the wall. The Knicks not playing a rookie within a rotation is not strange. Many teams that are on the brink of contention choose not to have a rookie in an 8 to 9 man rotation. But to never have opportunities throughout the season, to never have a game where they play 20 minutes, 25, that is rare. And Thibs really kept those rookies glued to the bench and glued to the G League, which I think is okay in the playoffs. But in the course of the regular season, say you have a really easy 5 game stretch in the poverty of the East, you can run Kolek 10, 14 minutes in the rotation. Find some rest Deuce during that stretch, or rest Payne during that stretch, and allow the rookie to run the offense and see what actions could work next year when he's more part of a 9th or 10th man in the rotation. We saw none of that. And to me, that was a consistent theme throughout Thibs' coaching, except for the guys he inherited, like RJ or Mitch. When Leon would draft someone, those guys had the shortest leash possible. Grimes in that conversation, IQ's in that conversation, Obi Toppin is certainly in that conversation. While other guys who might not have deserved it had unlimited leashes, like Julius Randle, for example, or Josh Hart, for example, or Jalen Brunson, for example. I'm not saying that there were times when these guys should have been benched or they should have played significantly lesser minutes. I'm just saying when the game is showing you they might not be the right option at that time, you have to have the trust in the rest of your guys to come in and fill that role at a lesser degree and then increase the role of the other guys to a higher degree to compensate for that. And we didn't ever really see that trust from Tom Thibodeau. And that level of trust is what you see from the most consistent winning organizations in the NBA. It's a trust in J-Dub to be the second option when he showed that he failed last year and to increase his minutes and put him on the best defender. It's also the trust of Alex Caruso, who had a horrible shooting stretch in the regular season, to continue to start in the playoffs and even guard Nikola Jokic. Those type of experimentations, I think, is what we need from our Nets coach, not willingness to go off script. Willingness like Joe Mazzulla to start making Peyton Pritchard a bigger part of the offense and scale back Al Horford and scale back Drew Holiday. You have to see what the game is giving you. Just because those guys have a name and a resume and a history, a legacy, doesn't mean they might be right for the moment at all times. So I hope a Nets coach is willing to throw anything out there based on what the game is telling you and give it a shot.
I definitely agree about the experimentation part. There's been times where teams have been a little bit longer than us on the bench. And I'm like, all right, you're getting overwhelmed because of our lack of size. And I'm like, all right, why not try, Pollock here? Not Colin Pollock. Why not try Daddy here? Since you're seeing that we're getting overwhelmed with size. Why don't we try to match that? We didn't do that at times. So I definitely agree with that for sure. Tom Thibodeau's offense is a lot of read and react. So a lot of the onus goes on the guys to pass the ball, to share the ball. Because he always says share the ball, share the ball, share the ball. But I feel like, Jalen Brunson himself, like we said last year, I feel like he's still kind of developing. So Tom Thibodeau will pre-share the ball, but it didn't always happen. Now, granted, this season our assist numbers did go up from last season. I think we were like middle of the pack or top 10 or something like that. I always feel like when OG got hurt, I felt like our numbers dropped. The assist numbers dropped, and I felt like Jalen Brunson reverted back to ISO. And then at the end of the season, Jalen Brunson got hurt. And then it's like he's getting into rhythm in the playoffs now. So I kind of feel like there was a synergy happening in the middle of the season where we started to see more passing, and we was getting around. Remember, we talked about it. There was a time where we felt like we were seeing 30 assists per game pretty routinely, and then the injuries happened. Precious Achiuwa was in the starting lineup. The trust is not in Precious Achiuwa like it is in OG Anunoby, and the assists started to drip off. And it never really recovered all the way. So I wish we'd I feel like a full season might have brought that back into the playoffs if we were healthy throughout the season into the playoffs. But that's just the theory.
I think I agree with you. That did happen. That's real. You're right. I think one of the reasons during that stretch we saw JB, and we talked about this in the podcast, still off ball more than we've ever seen him.
Yeah.
And Bridges and Hart were initiating the offense. That was something that when JB came back, I think Thibs was like, I can't risk that in the playoffs. I need Jalen Brunson to be the head of a snake and be on ball again. And that's why we never reverted back to the movement that we saw, both with the ball and with your feet. And that I think that would have been to our benefit. Whoever that coach is, JB, I think one of the top 3 priorities is more off-ball opportunities for Brunson. Let him rest. Let him not be dribbling so much and trying to fight through defenders and fight through a press or fight through a trap or fight through a blitz. Let's be off-ball. Get some catch and shoot. Get in rhythm from the 3-point line and allow someone else to cook one-on-one if they have a mismatch.
I mean, but he went McCall. Like last game of the playoffs, McCall had 5 turnovers. They were pressing Brunson. They said, okay, you're going to press Brunson. We're going to go off ball. McCall had a lot of success throwing the lobs and setting up the team in the first quarter. Second quarter, he had like multiple turnovers. Your counter to that, like in my mind, when I'm watching the game and I'm seeing how McCall's getting pressed and I'm seeing how Brunson's getting pressed, my mind was going, hey, this might be a time to try deuce and have a 3-guard setup since they're pressing so hard. You know, it's like to go with another ball handler. So I'm like, I don't totally agree with the off-ball thing. I do feel like they went off-ball in moments during the playoffs. I don't know if we just had the ball handlers to compensate it. Like McCall was supposed to be that for us, and he did in stretches, but when the pressure went on, he turned the ball over a lot, and I feel like that was a lot of the problem. But I mean, I feel like the overarching point though of, you know, the overarching point of more consistent ball movement, player movement, and just expanding the offense more, I do feel like that still is a valid outlook on it.
I think the Game 6 reference that you're talking to was Thibs with his back against the wall trying to see what would stick.
Mm-hmm.
And that type of desperation moves isn't necessarily what I'm advocating for. I think the reason it didn't work is because the rhythm hadn't been there since the middle of the season. And guys weren't used to being in that role. And the Pacers knew that, and they trapped him and they forced turnovers. But you're also right that Bridges is not the guy. Bridges' handle is, I'm very concerned about his ability to dribble. Period. Whether an old coach, new coach, I don't care. That's a major concern for me. But that's where the argument for more Deuce comes in, or more DeLon Wright comes in the playoffs, being that guy who's orchestrating the offense and trusting him to do that. We did see Mikal Bridges throw lobs, correct, but I think the reason it wasn't successful, again, is because we had to win away from it as something that was conditioned to the players' movements and repetitions to do on the court. And so when it was asked to do it again, the rhythm failed.
Yeah. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Rich.
Probably for some of the earlier points about the rookies. I think there was always. I think being a coach isn't just the X and O's. It just isn't everything on the court. You're an extension of the front office, and I think in some of the ways, Tom Thibodeau didn't get with the new. I guess the skills, probably the new younger coaches know the management part a little bit better. I think with the rookies, I saw that as like a glaring mistake by Tom Thibodeau. The Knicks were strapped with assets last year. We went into the draft and we had 2 first-round picks. I don't know if everybody knew we had 2 first-round picks. The Knicks did their magic in the draft, and they turned that into 4 players out of those 2 draft picks. And the Knicks felt that all 4 players were worthy of first-round picks. So just my guess is the Knicks thought that these players were worthy to be coached up, and I think to give them value, there's a real value to those players. Like we're talking about trades. Tyler Kolek is not worth a first round pick if you throw him in a trade. Become Daddy, if you throw him in a trade, he's not worth a first round pick. I think that's a real thing for management. That's something the coach has a hand in, and I think Tom Thibodeau was so focused on the court that there's an overarching management that he's responsible for, that he didn't look at.
I'm starting to see a lot of your philosophy come together. You've been hinting at that about like underperforming with the assets that you had, but I've never been able to ask you, had the chance to ask you what you meant by that. That
Mhm.
explanation, I agree. You're right. The Dallas pick is the other one that we had last year that finally conveyed from the KP trade, and we got 4 players out of that. And it's a good point. Would any of them are any of them worth the pick in which they were selected with? And if you take that further, are they worth the original 2 first-round picks that were used to draft him? I would agree with you and say no.
Yeah, I feel like even given their talent level, it's still going to be hard, even with a different coach, to have them reach their full value year 2, just because of the nature of the team and the amount of veterans we have. Do I feel like there have been spots where they need more minutes? Yes, for sure. For sure. You heard me mention about times when we needed length and we didn't go to our bench and the young kids to see if their length can match up. We didn't even try it. But do I feel like, yeah, but I feel like something like that, you only really see those picks coming to fruition when it's like a really young team without aspirations of winning a championship.
Mhm.
Like that's the only time you can really see them get minutes if they're playing like 20 minutes a game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I'm not sure even with a new coach,
yeah,
you would see any of those guys get 20 minutes a game.
yeah. I'm not even talking about 20 minutes. I'm just talking about time to time. Just give them 5 minutes. Show what they have.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Um,
I'm with you.
yeah.
I'm only
So
addressing
I
the
mean,
value part. I'm
yeah.
addressing.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
what I'll give an example is on Miami Heat. Um, Probably 10 slots higher. We see Khalil Ware is selected.
Mm-hmm.
Khalil Ware didn't play very much last year, but I can tell you right now, Ware is untouchable. And I can tell you that if they ask for Khalil Ware in a trade, he's probably worth a few first round picks. So I think just if the Knicks believe in the talent, show the talent just enough. Just enough. Like I don't think you have to. If you every fifth game you put him out to end up couple quarters, I think that's just enough to show, hey, Kolek is pretty valuable. I seen the kid, he has a little bit of skills, a little bit of player envy there. And I think that builds that builds value in the players.
Okay. Yo, salute to the chat. Salute to TikTok. New followers on TikTok. So we got a couple new followers on TikTok. Salute to you guys. Shout out to Dougie. Shout out to the city. To Trade Towns. I don't know.
Hell no.
Shout out to Bailey. Shout out to Chino. He says, I'm 50-50 on Thibs getting fired. Yeah, pretty much. I kind of feel like I'm just like, I'm not enthused about it, but I'm waiting to see what happens. That's where I'm at.
I
Yeah,
feel that way too.
yeah.
I'm not enthused about it. Like, I can see why. Like I said, I can see why he would get fired, but I can also talk myself into him staying. So I'm kind of just like, wait and see who are we getting next.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at right
Yeah, a lot of times like firing is like an emotional thing. Like, like we fire the coach. I with Tibbs, he's like extremely well compensated. They said for the next 3 years he's gonna make around $30 million. Like he is not gonna miss any of those checks. He is he is very well compensated. I think he
True.
left on great terms. I don't think there's anybody who would see Tibbs out, you know. I don't think there's any bad blood between the front office and Tibbs. I think he has a great reputation. I think this is probably a great I think this is the best firing I've ever seen for the New York Knicks. I think a lot of other coaches like have exited badly, and I don't think this is a bad exit for
I see.
Tibbs.
now. I guess it's kind of like saying I got shot, but I survived.
Well, I will say I'm so damn happy it didn't happen. Where I do disagree with you, Fritz, is it should not have happened before the playoffs. I It would have been very difficult to watch Rick Brunson as a head coach, coaching these Knicks, and I think we would have lost to the Detroit Pistons. And all honesty, anything you hear about Rick Brunson behind the scenes, it's always him getting into it with somebody. It's never like Rick Brunson mended this relationship or Rick Brunson brought the best out. It's always Rick Brunson got into it with X player. Every time you hear about Rick Brunson behind the scenes. So I'm thankful that didn't happen. I think the right time to fire him, if it was going to happen, is during the summer. And now I think the hastiness in which it happened, I think that was on purpose. I really believe that, Dolan, man. Dolan is a egomaniac. I think he saw Johnny Bryant, a former guy who was on his payroll, being the top 2 finalists for the Phoenix Suns, and he was like, we let that guy go? Let's do what we need to do in order to at least make them an offer. I think that an offer has probably been made right now to Johnny Bryant that he's mulling over to be the head coach. This is my pure speculation. I'm just reading the tea leaves, and it would make sense. It lines up. Johnny Bryant, again, has chemistry and understanding of half this roster. He also knows how Dolan works. He knows Leon Rose's expectations. He also knows what worked in Thibs' system and what didn't from a different point of view. So I think he would probably integrate some of the things that Thibs did, maybe roles, maybe how guys were utilized in drop coverage, maybe how guys attack the pick and roll defensively with Mitch and Brunson, not Brunson and Cat. Those things, I think that will still be there as a framework.
Right.
And then he will add his enhancements from his point of view on both ends of the ball. So I think Johnny Bryant is probably, and that was also reported by Ian Bedley, I believe, that he was a favorite of people within the front office. And we've always heard when that term is mentioned, that catch-all, it's Brock Hour, Worldwide Wes, Gerson Rosas, and Leon Rose. That's the guys that they're talking about. It's a contingency. And I think that a lot of them are for Johnny Bryant because a lot of them were here along with him when he was a lead assistant.
All right. So I guess I can just lead into this conversation since you already brought it there already. The guys you see who need to be the Knicks coach to you, I'm guessing top of both you guys' list is Johnny Bryant.
100% for me.
Yes. I think he can. I think Johnny Bryant is the one person that I don't see them remixing this roster for.
Yeah.
I think he knows the lay of the land, and I think he's going to come in. He may tweak it, but I don't think the first thing he wants to do is break the band up.
All right, I hear you. Because I'm not gonna hold you. I'm hearing all the rest of these names. I'm just like, I know people have been talking about Mike Malone. It's Mike Malone, the Thibs clone.
Right. Right.
Might want to pass on Mike Malone. Even though he has championship pedigree, he's not looking the best right now. I know people want him because of that, but it's like if you like ISO ball and rigidness, then go to Mike Malone. We could have just kept Thibs and had the familiarity.
Yep.
Mike Budenholzer, a guy who talking about the definition of insanity. We killed Thibs for not adjusting. Kind of the opposite of the Jimmy Butler effect. When Jimmy Butler killed him in the playoffs, he refused to double team. The whole series. Didn't adjust it one time. Didn't switch up the scheme one time. And got beat for it. And ended up getting fired. Don't feel like he would be a guy the Knicks brass would like or the fans would either. So I don't know who do you guys feel like outside of Johnny Bryant might be somebody you'd be interested in?
Go ahead, Fritz.
What was his name? I think a lot of people, there's a name that I probably brought up earlier in the year, and I would probably tell you why I no longer have that name in there. Like Dan Hurley was on my list like earlier February. I kept saying Dan Hurley is a guy, local guy, pass up the Laker job because he wanted to be closer to home. I said, oh, the Knicks job would be perfect for Dan Hurley. And then the one moment I realized Dan Hurley cannot be the coach of the New York Knicks is when they lost in the tournament. And Dan Hurley absolutely had a meltdown.
Yes, he did.
An absolute meltdown. And I'm like, if that happened and he was head coach of the New York Knicks, uh, yeah, that couldn't happen. As an NBA coach, especially the New York Knicks, like that wouldn't be a good look. Like I think that you need a certain to be the coach of the New York Knicks under constant scrutiny.
Yeah.
Mm.
You have to be a special person, and that's one thing about Tibbs. Like Tibbs never lashed out at people. Tibbs never let people get under his skin. Tibbs just let it roll off his back. Someone like Dan Hurley who can't let it go.
Good point.
This would be a tough situation. Even though I love his X and O's, I love his approach to the game, I love his passion,
Personality
but
matters.
that's a part of the game that you can't ignore.
That is a fantastic point. The New York jersey is the heaviest in the NBA, and the most pressure and the most criticized is the New York Knicks head coach. And there's also that legacy of poverty that you're constantly being reminded of and connected to through the ESPN, who doesn't know enough to realize it's changed dramatically since then. So you're always tied to LOL Knicks narratives, which is
Mhm.
in your detriment. Tibbs had that thick skin that I think Mike Malone would also have. But JL has hit the nail on the head. Firing one guy to hire someone who's fired a month ago, just that sentence alone, I have a hard time wrapping my head around.
Mhm.
That being James Dolan's logic or Leon Rose's logic or World Wide West or Brock Aller. Those guys are too smart, I think, to do that. But maybe make Mike Malone the lead assistant because Mike Malone's like, Charlotte, Washington, those jobs don't interest me. There's
Mhm.
not a head coach opening. Denver resigned their interim. Memphis resigned their interim. There's not an opening. Maybe I'll go back home in New York and I'll be an assistant coach to Johnny Bryant, lead assistant. If Bryant falls under pressure, your Nets in line would take over. Maybe I'm guessing his dream job too, to be the New York Knicks coach. I like Malone in his assistant capacity. Johnny Bryant is the only name I'm 100% advocate for. I don't know enough about these guys who are assistants or in
Yeah.
college or whatever to make a play. I do have a list of guys. It's a hell no for me though, and I'm going to go through those five guys and tell you why in order.
Before you get to that list, I just read Stephen Bondi said that he's on the list of potential candidates. Dan
Who?
Hurley.
Whoa, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa. Okay.
Not sure how, when you say list, that could mean anything, but
Yeah.
supposedly he's on the
Dan
list.
Hurley is on Dan Hurley is on Fritz's hell no list. I agree with all of his assessment. I haven't thought about enough to be on mine. I have five guys I thought about a lot that are
Yeah.
absolute hell no's
I'm
for
I'm
me.
from Connecticut, so like I have a special affinity for like UConn coaches and UConn players. Like he is his a coach his approach to coaching would be a fresh air to basketball. I think just yeah, I think it would be a fresh air. Even for New York, like I think it's kind of I think it's kind of like the personality of he kind of takes the personality of the fans, and that's a good thing and a bad thing.
Mm.
But absolutely brilliant coach though.
Assistant.
Number five. Yeah, I mean that would be cool for sure. I'm fine with that. Number five, Rick Brunson. I think Rick Brunson is not gone. Rick Brunson is not gone from the organization. He's the best player in the last quarter century father. And I think Rick Brunson probably will be demoted from that lead assistant role, and he's going to have to bite that bullet and deal with that. But I do think he's one of the few that are retained. My money is that him and Mark Bryant are the most likely to be retained from this regime. I can't wait for all those Thibs acolytes to be knocked out. Like Uncle Phil, toss him out of MSG, bro. Dave
Ah!
Erdman, with Larry Greer, get him out of here, man. The Rick Brunson, absolutely hell no. The fracture it would cause in the locker room for the star player's dad to be the head coach is ridiculous. Mark Jackson, but not for the reasons that you might assume. I really don't care about him being a Jesus freak, being a pastor, talking about God in the locker room. That doesn't bother me at all. That's his prerogative. The players are cool with it. Cool. What I didn't like is how acrimonious and acidic his relationship was with the front office. And Tibbs already was a very stubborn, unmovable force. And you had to completely fire him. There was no mediation, negotiation for him to step back or change his ways. You had to fire him in order to get a new voice or a change of scenery. I think Mark Jackson is the same way. I think Mark Jackson has been unfairly blackballed for his religious beliefs, but I also think there's a part of it that is how he exited from Golden State, where he was into it with his assistant coaches and Brian Stauerbreen. He was into it with the general manager. He was into it with the owner. That type of guy, I'm not cool with having. In the locker room, badass. Give me 3 or 4 of those dogs. But as a head coach, post Thibs, not into it. Number 2, I'll combine. Frank Vogel and Mike Budenholzer are 2 NBA coaches that don't have a job, that both have championships in their resume, one with the Lakers, one with the Bucks. Both of them happen to have a top 20 player of all time. In LeBron's case, number 2, Giannis probably ended up top 15. I think that's a part of why they won. I'm not saying they won in spite of them, but to me, their level of lack of discernment and intentionality in what job they chose, I didn't like that both of them went to Phoenix for a quick, easy win and were both fired within a year. Fired within a year, both of them, to me says the locker room was hell no. And that locker room is a very veteran-laden locker room. Book, Tyus Jones, Beal, Durant. I'm not saying those guys didn't have a hand in that franchise burning down, because all of them did, including Booker. But the fact that they ultimately and all of them rejected them made it seem like, to me, that was a kind of a cash championship grab by both those guys. And with their voice didn't fall on veteran ears, which is our locker room. We have a bunch of vets, guys with very strong personalities in terms of how they're used. And I don't want to hear another Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby cryptic tweet or cryptic answer in the media. I'm done with that shit. Like, let's move on from that. And then finally, the worst option, Mike Brown. Mike Brown, to me, is the most overrated coach of the last 25 years. He is still riding the wave of the finals appearance in 2007 with LeBron James, where people forget he was absolutely swept and not in a single moment of that series in any level of legitimacy. Then went to the Lakers and was absolutely booted out of that situation. Then tried to go back to the Cavs and was absolutely booted out of that situation. Then went to the Sacramento Kings and was booted out of that situation. Mike Brown has failed miserably in every single stop he's been in. And in every single stop, there was potential for success, and he failed to grasp it every single time. To me, Mike Brown's a dollar store Tom Thibodeau, and I have no interest in having Mike Brown as a lead coach of this, because I know exactly how it's going to turn out. It's going to turn out in being absolutely not reaching full potential and underachieving. So to me, I like the option of more uncertainty. I'm drawn toward that as a risk taker. I think it's interesting to have a name who hasn't been a head coach and doesn't have blemishes on the record, but then forge that legacy here in New York City.
I'd like to add one more to the list that people are going to keep bringing up. Jay Wright. Jay Wright's name is always going to keep coming up, but we don't need any more Villanova influence. We just need players to play together. We don't need any more commercials. We don't need any we don't need any more ties to Villanova. We just want the right guy for the job.
No, Jay.
And I want to shout out real quick shout out to the predicate who said Mark Jackson was blackballed off the poll that French posted. That is one of the most hilarious jokes I've ever. The predicate is so funny and so smart, bro. I'm sure French didn't do that on purpose, but that is such a hilarious roast. Oh man, Mark Jackson, R.I.P.
Oh man. List, man. Pretty good list. I kind of agree with you. Through all points, actually. I have no.
Wow. All right.
No pushback. The only thing The only thing I will say about the Mark Jackson thing is, maybe it's my conspiracy theory brain. Like, I used to believe everything I read about Mark Jackson, and when I heard him kind of talk about what would happen in Golden State, and he kind of spoke out and said a lot of that stuff wasn't true, it had me think, okay, wait, maybe I'm thinking about this all wrong. Maybe a lot of stuff that was said about it really isn't true. So maybe he does deserve a job at some point. I'm not sure if that's the Knicks job, but that's the only thing I would semi push back on is that. But other than that, like, I feel like I agree. I agree with everything you said, to be honest with you.
I think it'd be cool too to see some of these young guys, a Rondo, a Stackhouse on the assistant coaching. That I love that stuff, man. Did some dogs in here to really help improve on a player and coach one-on-one level. Not the grand scheme, but behind the scenes, man. I would love a Stackhouse or a Rajon Rondo to be on our bench. That'd be cool.
I would like the Stackhouse. Mm-hmm. Rondo, in theory, I would love. My deep hatred for the Celtics is preventing me from allowing it, even though I know Rajon Rondo is a brilliant basketball mind and probably might be like the perfect coach for Jalen Brunson in particular on how to like manipulate offenses, and it's just Rondo. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I get it.
I've been campaigning for Rondo the last two
Oh
months.
my god.
2 months but yeah, he's I feel the same thing about Sam Cassell, because the way he did to us in the finals, I'll never forget.
I feel you. I guess it was longer ago.
I'll never forget what he did in the finals. Came out of nowhere. Came out of nowhere and dominated.
Oh man, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. But shoot, I'm with that. I'm waiting to see. I just saw like a list on Twitter of like the 2020 coaching candidacy list from like 5 years ago, before we had Tom Thibodeau. It was Tom Thibodeau, of course. Jason Kidd. I know you love Jason Kidd. Sarcasm. All right. If you guys didn't catch it. Kenny Atkinson. I know that was a favorite for Knicks fans. Just not sure how available or not available he would be. He would definitely have the offense being more equal opportunity for sure. Mike Woodson. The guy who was, I felt like Mike Woodson was supposed to be, I felt like he was like the first failsafe for Tom Thibodeau when he was here.
Mm-hmm.
He's like a character guy though. I'm not sure how much of an X and O's guy is. He's still like very ISO heavy type of guy. I don't think the offense would work well with him.
Agreed.
But I think the players would just like really like him.
He just joined the Kings.
Oh, okay.
As an assistant, yeah.
He
got fired.
Well, there you go. Ime Udoka, you already know. Mike Brown, Jamal Mosley, Will Hardy, Pat Delaney, Chris Fleming, and Mike Miller.
Good old Mike.
Good old Mike.
Will Hardy has been like a big name recently. And who's the guy from I'm not sure if he's on the list, but the guy from the Heat, one of the Heat assistants, it's like one of those big names. I'm not sure if he's on the list.
Mike Miller just joined the Kings too.
Oh, look, well, there you go. Well, scratch that off. for those hoping for Mike Miller, scratch them off the list.
I think that was only Mike Miller.
Damn. Chris Quinn.
I like Mike Miller.
Yeah, Chris Quinn.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Brandon. Yeah, Chris Quinn. Whew. All right. I'll be waiting on pins and needles to see who will be the next head coach for these Knicks. I guess whenever that happens or we get some more news, we'll hop back on and talk to you about it. I don't know if you guys have any closing thoughts.
I think I think early in the show I didn't say anything, but I know you guys said, hey, you think that the roster is going to stay relatively the same. And I kind of have a little pushback on that, in that if there is a time to add to the roster, like this is the time to do it before the second apron. So I think this is the summer where the Knicks can stuff in somebody before their extension kicks in, because the Knicks know they're gonna go over it next year. So hey, just stuff it with the people who's gonna extend next year, and it doesn't matter how far we go over, as long as Dolan pays the bill. And I think that could be a strategy this summer, where the Knicks like target players who haven't been extended yet, that probably won't get paid, that come play for the Knicks. We'll pay you. We don't care about the bill.
I mean, when I say I don't expect changes, I mean more so the starting five. I'll be
yes.
That's what I really mean. Not that we wouldn't pay for some bench pieces.
I think I think we're definitely adding a starter.
You think we're adding a starter?
Starter.
Wow.
Adding a starter. I think definitely one thing I'm adding is we are adding a starter.
You're adding a starter. Okay.
We are adding a starter.
So the only person I can say when I say add, okay, when you say adding a starter, okay, I understand. There's two things that can happen, right? Mitchell Robinson can start next to Carlton Towns, which I think might be a good idea, right? Or
I'm kind of against it, but all right.
double big lineup, man. He's back in. Or you sub out Josh Hart. You take out Josh Hart and you replace him with whoever, right?
Yeah.
And whoever could be Deuce McBride, or it could be whoever we get in the market with like a signing trade with Precious or something. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to changes, that's probably the change I expect is maybe Precious won't be here. But I feel like the core is going to be here. That's just me.
Yeah. I think if you add like a true power forward, it kind of allows Cat to play his best position. I think Cat and Mitch play the same position. Their favorite position is the same position. So I think if you can add a power forward to the mix, or if you add you add another wing to the mix, could make it interesting.
I feel like I want to pause and hold that thought. I want to hold this whole conversation for Sunday. That's the team, man. That's the team. I know. I saw Lee's eyes light up. He's like, let's go. Pause. We'll be back Sunday. We're already planning back Sunday. I didn't even expect to get this conversation, but we will be back on Sunday to give like a season overview and our vision for the roster. So if you like that little bit of taste, be back here. Hit that follow, hit that subscribe. We'll be back here Sunday. Hopefully, Ebony, you'll be here as well, and to bring it back. Although I already know Ebony's stance. Ebony's stance, of course, is usually the same.
Freeze me.
Keep everybody. That's usually her. But no, she wants to trade Cat. So never mind. Scratch that. So I'm pretty sure she's gonna have a Cat trade ready. All right.
For my final thoughts, in Leon we trust. I mean, Leon has done the miraculous. He inherited a Steve Mills, David Fizdale disaster and turned into a conference finals opponent this year. And every year over year, we got better. We got better with the talent that we had on the roster, and we got better with the wins that we had in the regular season, and we got better with the advancement in the playoffs. I've been very, very impressed. I think Leon Rhodes is a top 3 executive in the NBA. So if he makes a call, I think he's thought long and hard. I think he's went through a lot of different voices and opinions. Apparently, he also got the player's opinion, which I'd like to hear too. And I think he's holding himself accountable, and he's holding Tom Thibodeau accountable with this move. So dealing with the guys he's hired. He's got Brock Auer, best capologist in the NBA, someone who's sneaky, someone that you have to really know the behind the scenes in order to appreciate. Walt Perrin, one of the best scouts the NBA has. He has a small market mindset for New York. He goes at the small market guys that can only use a draft or have really tight cap constraints, but he brings that to New York City to have a lot of discipline financially and a lot of strategy in terms of a draft, and that's to our favor. So whoever he brings on, Gerson Rosas too, who got us Cat with those negotiations with Minnesota, I trust Leon Rose. I think Leon Rose is going to find the right coach, and just as important, build out the right bench around that coach as well.
All right, and Leon, we trust.
Yeah, I'm very encouraged by what the Knicks are doing. The Knicks are taking everything seriously. This championship isn't their pursuit for a championship isn't just words. They're really about it. So I'm really happy about it. I want to share a quote. It says, "Growth is painful, change is painful, but nothing is as painful as staying stuck somewhere you don't belong." And the Knicks deserve better, and we're not going to be stuck here for long.
My man.
Okay, he took a page out of your book, Lee.
I love it, bro. I love it.
He's like, I'm gonna Turn deaf poetry. All right,
My
cool. And with the poems. Great show, guys. Really great show. Loved it. Fritz, shout out to you, man. I've seen you grow post for a few of these shows now. You had a really, really good show, Fritz. Salute to you.
Oh, thank you.
100% agreed. Fritz been cooking.
Yeah, man. Fritz been cooking. I feel like Fritz's best show so far. All right. Hope you guys appreciate the show. We'll be back, like I said, we'll be back Sunday night to talk about reviewing the season and our outlook on the season moving forward. So definitely be there or be square. If you like the show, hit that like, that subscribe. If you're on TikTok, hit that follow. Okay. So yeah, Lee, let them know they can find you, Lee.
At Twitter _ Lee Thibodeau, LeeEscobedo.
All right. Mr. NBA Economy, let them know where they can find you.
Fritz handles on Twitter, also NBA Economy on YouTube.
All right. And I forgot to mention why Fritz was interjecting about the moves that can be made in the offseason is Fritz is a guy who kind of studies the cap stuff a lot. So that's why he interjected and told us that the Knicks would most likely make a move this season because they know they will be able to kind of load up the ship before the 2nd April. I believe this is what he's saying. All right. That is the show, guys. Thank you guys for watching. You can follow us on the KOT Show on Twitter, the Knick of Time Show on Instagram, and the Knick of Time Show on Facebook as well. All right. So that's the show. We are out of here. And as always, hold on. As always,
shout out the worldwide West. Everywhere we go, we leave a worldwide mess.
It's a mess out here in these Knicks streets. That's the show. Appreciate the support. We are out of here. Peace.
New York, big city of dreams. New York, big city of dreams.